Well, thank you very much for coming, everybody. It's lovely to see you all here tonight. And welcome to tonight's very special evening of Seance and Spirit Theatre. Those of you who haven't met me already this evening, my name is Paul, and this is Miss Sylvia Scepter, will be your hosts for this evening. As many of you I'm sure are already aware, or have quickly become aware as you've entered this building, Taliston is a very special place. It's a place where time and space appear to have no meaning. A place where the impossible seems all too possible, and a place where the ghosts of the past seem to whisper in our ears. And we're gathered here this evening with the express intention of communicating with the spirit of a young boy who died upstairs in a room that has become known as the haunted bedroom. As the name implies, it is thought that his unquiet spirit still occupies that bedroom. And more than that, that his spirit wanders further afield within this house, across the landing, down the stairs, and into this room itself. And perhaps tonight, in a place like this and on a night like this, other spirits will be drawn close to us as well. There may be other spirits that are drawn close by our earnest desire to communicate with the realm of the dead. So by the end of this evening, we will have held a séance in the haunted bedroom. We would have conducted experiments with the Ouija board, and we will have also installed one of you as our resident medium. Because tonight is not about us demonstrating to you how clever we are, because to be honest we're not. It's about showing you the sort of very natural abilities that we all have inside of us. Natural abilities such as clairvoyance and mediumship. Some of you may already believe that you have some abilities in this area. Some of you may already believe that you can be a little bit psychic at times, whereas others may think that you have no ability in this area at all. But hopefully what we can do, and what we'll be trying to do this evening, is to demonstrate to you the abilities that lie in all of us. And we'll be giving these abilities free rein tonight to express themselves. So throughout the evening, what I would say to you is, if you do experience anything, if you see anything, if you hear anything, if you feel anything, if you feel unduly emotional, if you feel like you want to cry or laugh, please let us know. Tonight is about you guys having an experience, okay? I should point out there are no actors upstairs with sheets over their heads. And we won't be running across the landing Scooby-Doo style, being pursued by the caretaker dressed up in a mask and carrying a plastic machete. Tonight will be as genuine as it's possible to be, shall we say, when it comes to the realm of spirit investigation. So yes, by the end of the evening we will have had a séance, we will have conducted experiments with the Ouija board, and we will have installed one of you as our resident medium. What I want to do is conduct an experiment, first of all, because we are, how many of us are there here? 15, 16, 17 perhaps of us in this room. If we're going to install one of you as our resident medium, we need to conduct some experiments to find out who amongst you has the correct attributes. In the 1850s, I'm going to tell you a little story. In the 1850s, mesmerism was all the rage. In the parlours and the drawing rooms of the rich and the famous and the fashionable, mesmerists, who of course would later go on to be rebranded as hypnotists, would entertain invited guests with feats achieved via the mesmeric trance. Volunteers would be put into trance and would be cajoled into doing all sorts of outrageous behaviours. But there was a branch of mesmerism that was a lot more earnest in what it wanted to achieve, and it saw the mesmeric trance as a way of helping humanity, and especially in the area of pain relief. At the time, if you were to have surgery, the only method of pain relief that would be available to you would be ether. And before that, of course, the only pain relief would have been a slug of brandy or whiskey. But by the 1850s, ether had come into use. The trouble with ether was that the method of administering it was so crude compared to what we're used to these days, was that as many people died from the anaesthetic as died from the surgery itself. People would survive the surgery but then just never wake up again. They would simply be given too much ether. So what the mesmerists wanted to do was to show how, by placing somebody into trance, they could have a pain-free operation. without all of the risks associated with ether and other such chemicals. The trouble is, then as now, mesmerism, hypnosis was shrouded in controversy. Some people believed in it, some people thought it was all stuff and nonsense. And especially the surgeons of London, who the mesmerists wanted to impress with the power of the mesmeric trance, the surgeons of London were a very hard-nosed and cynical bunch who saw mesmerism as quackery. And many of them had come out in public to denounce the work of the mesmerists and to say it was all stuff and nonsense. But the mesmerists were unbowed, and they were determined to show the surgeons of London the benefits that were available to them via mesmerism. And so they conducted a series of lectures. They organised a series of lectures in which the surgeons would be invited and the mesmerists would demonstrate the power of mesmerism. But the trouble is, of course, if you're going to lecture about mesmerism, at some point you're going to have to place somebody into trance. And it's a fact that some people are very good at going into trance. Some people will go into trance like that. Some people will go into trance after what's known as an induction. You may have seen it before, the deeper and deeper, waving with a watch in front of the eyes, etc., what's known as an induction. Whereas other people, there are some people who will simply never go into trance. And of course the worst thing that could happen to the mesmerists would be if they were given their grand lecture and espousing the wonders of mesmerism, if the volunteer they chose didn't go into trance. You know, that would result in hilarity from the surgeons and continued accusations of quackery. So the mesmerists, being a practical bunch of chaps, they came up with a solution, and their solution was to take their own volunteers with them to the lectures. Volunteers who they knew would go into trance easily, quickly, and every single time. And how they did this was they went to the workhouses and the poorhouses of the East End of London, and they conducted mesmeric tests on the poor folks that they found there. And those poor folk who showed an aptitude to go into trance, and most of them were young women, to be honest with you, were whisked away from the workhouses, from the poorhouses, were given rooms in the mesmerists' grand houses, were fed good food, were given new clothes, and all they had to do to maintain this new life was to go into trance whenever the mesmerists told them to. And these were streetwise girls who they knew which side their bread was buttered on, and so they quickly found they could go into trance just like that every single time. But genuinely strange things started to happen while these girls were in trance. They started to diagnose patients in the hospitals. They started to prescribe drugs for patients in hospitals. They started to talk in strange tongues, in foreign languages. And they started to recount historical events as though they'd been there and witnessed them themselves. And nobody could understand what was going on. Where was all this information coming from? These were girls from the, poor girls from the East End of London who could barely write their own name, barely literate girls. Where was all this information coming from? And then one day somebody said, I think what's going on is that when these girls are in trance, the spirits are entering their body and using their body as a medium through which to communicate with us. And something known as the trance medium was born. And we'll be talking a lot more about those very shortly. But what I suggest is that we conduct an experiment here tonight. We're going to conduct that very test that the mesmerists used to conduct in the workhouses and the poorhouses of London, to see who amongst you would have been rescued from the East End of London, would have been whisked away to a new life. Who amongst you shows an aptitude for going into trance? I'm not going to put anybody to trance, I promise you, but this test shows if you have an aptitude for going into trance. And also it will show if you have an aptitude for clairvoyance, for being psychic, because it is a well-known fact that people who can go into trance quite easily are also often clairvoyants and mediums, and they will often use this ability in their work. So, if you'd like to take part, I'd like you to stand, if that's okay. If you're able to stand, please do stand. And what I'd like you to do is to clasp your hands together like this, as though you're making a desperate plea. Please, don't choose me.